Hi, and welcome to InFocus. This is Jabbar Al-Ubaidi. In this special episode, we'll be talking about the crisis between Russia and Ukraine, and in fact, through Europe and via NATO, and probably will hit Asia and Middle East as well, because it is not just political crisis, it's economic crisis and human crisis. So with me, three speakers from different part of the world, and I will start with Dr. Brian Frederick, who is professor and the chair of the Political Science Department at Bridgewater State University, which is one of our own. Dr. Brian, let me start with you about this crisis, current Russia-Ukraine crisis. What do you think? I mean, what are these very fast approach and unfolding events, just yesterday and today, and a lot of declarations, a lot of decrees. What's your reading for that, Brian?
So I think it's important that we don't overstate the gravity of the situation, but we also shouldn't downplay it either. So what actually has happened that's changed the dynamic in the past 24 hours, it's Russia's decision to recognize the two separatist republics in Ukrainian territory, and to send in peacekeepers to try to ensure security for them. And so that's provoked a negative reaction from the West. The United States and European leaders have condemned the move by Putin. Now we see Germany suspending the review of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is very important to their energy future. But obviously, given this action, they don't approve, and they feel like that's a necessary retaliation. We see U.S. taking through Biden taking targeted sanctions on economic activity in those two disputed territories. We see other sanctions that may go beyond that, targeting specifically some of the leaders in Russia. But I think it's important to note that this is not the invasion that the U.S. has been promising for the past couple of months, particularly in the last couple of weeks, declaring that there would be an actual invasion. Most of what we've seen now is not really that unexpected, considering Biden in a press conference had sort of hinted that this might be kind of the limited incursion that Putin would proceed with, but it's not full-scale war with Ukraine, certainly. And I think hopefully that won't happen. We don't know at this point how much further Putin wants to push the envelope, whether he's going to go further or whether this is going to satisfy, the internal pressures that he's facing within Russia. So I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions and still a lot of developments to see play out. It is a escalation of the situation, but certainly it's not something that the United States and Russia and Europe can't step back from and try to pursue better relations.
Thank you, Brian. So Dr. Jawad Al-Anani, the head of the Board of Trustees of Barka University in Amman, Jordan. Dr. Jawad, so you have a lot of experience. I mean, being one of probably the players a few years ago, you held a lot of we call it now former position and on the political arena in Jordan, and also you are economist. Who's holding the keys now? Who are the really doing the real job in terms of controlling this crisis, and what's the direction is going for?
Okay. Well, I think that during the hassle which has been taking place over the last couple of weeks, I think somehow they were determining the limits which either side can go to without invoking the other to take a military action. So in a way, I think that President Putin has arrived at the conclusion that by admitting the independence of both Donetsk and Luhansk, the two runaway separatist regions in eastern Ukraine, he probably will not invoke a war. And so in a way, he did take that step. And he's testing the reaction on the part of the Western powers. Of course, the reaction has been verbally very, very strong. Everybody has been promising. I mean, Germany has taken a decision to not to freeze the signature and ratification of the second North Sea pipeline, gas pipeline. Also, there are certain measures which the American administration might take, and I think President Biden will tonight announce what kind of reaction in terms of boycotts he's going to do without using all his arsenal, because he probably thinks that things may still escalate further. And I think that we will see not war. I don't think that any party will go into war. It is going to be very lethal and damaging to both sides. So what will happen probably, as far as we can see, is that we will see a long, extended economic war. And that's what we will see. And to me, in the long run, I think that Russia needs to be alienated from China. So in a way, this is, while this looks like a very negative development, but it could lead to a better negotiated position where both the NATO, Europe, and the United States will take a position vis-a-vis Russia. I think we will see lots of dynamics and down scale, down the road. We will see many things developing in the Gulf states, in the relations with Iran, in the nuclear deal, in the gas deals between, the meeting of the gas producers in Doha with the presence of the Iranian president there. All are indications that there are many kitchens busy preparing recipes for a long-term economic war and with Russia. And this is an arena where Russia cannot win, to be honest with you. The only leverage they have is that the cost of gas to Europe will escalate if they decided not to take gas from Europe. Probably we might see also a return to the nuclear production of electricity, going back and taking back a front seat in the near future. So in a way, this is a dynamic that we have to look at very carefully and see what will happen. But I don't think that anybody is crazy enough to go to war on.
Dr. Diyar Saleh is your professor and, of course, at the Department of Political Science at Mustansariya University in Iraq. What's the reading from your side there? So you live in a country where they depends heavily on oil, and also the politics are not very really optimistic in your country. Is there any problem there? Do you think that will actually make your life more miserable in Iraq? I mean, Dr. Anani mentioned about, the involvement of the Gulfs, and of course, the Iranian president for sure is in Qatar, which is very important visit. So what's your reading for what's going on now? Thanks.
Thank you. Actually, I'd like to say that I agree that the situation will not lead for any direct confrontation between the United States and Russia. However, there are many important consequences, not just affecting the situation in Ukraine or in the other parts of Europe, but also will affect the situation in the Middle East. Let us just remember that the price of oil has increased dramatically in this period of time. Today, the price of one barrel oil has reached $100. This for sure will be a fruitful consequence for Iraqis, as they depend a lot on the prices of oil and the energy markets. But from another side, I think there is something to be taken into account when we talk about this crisis. Today I had a discussion with one of my friends living in Germany. He is also a professor, and we talked about the geopolitical roots of the Russian steps towards Ukraine. For me, I think that unfortunately till this moment, the administration of Putin still believes in the traditional geopolitical thoughts that conducted by Rudolf Hitler towards the other parts of Europe, especially towards the eastern part of Europe. Hitler said that Greater Germany extends into the regions where Germans spread. The same thing is said by the Russian nowadays. They said that we support the historical Russian areas in the eastern part of Ukraine to be annexed to Russia. This is very important development to take place nowadays, because it will affect also the situation, especially here in Iraq and in the Middle East. We have the same allegations. Let us just remember that Turkey said that we have a historical right in Mosul region, including Kurdistan region, provinces, Suleymaniya, Erbil, and Duhok. The same thing can be said towards Al-Ahwaz area inside Iran. It is also demanded by some Arab nationalists to be returned to the Arab world. And the same thing concerning the allegations or pretext on which Saddam's regime depend when he invaded Kuwait in the 19th. So this is a crazy situation. I think that this will lead. This is what I'm afraid of. This will lead to encourage the other regional powers to do the same steps towards the other geographies.
So do you see this is going to be a kind of a domino effect in terms of the geopolitics of the world in Asia, in the Middle East, in Africa, in Europe, and throughout the world?
Well, yeah, there's always going to be geopolitical implications. I think the biggest are the fact that the U.S. was really concerned with the possibility of Russia and Germany developing deeper economic ties through the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. There was a lot of internal opposition in the United States leadership to that move, and so this move will cause the connections between Russia and potentially other European powers to deteriorate. In terms of the economic fallout, the United States is dealing with an inflation problem. Now we're going to see probably gas prices continue to increase, and it's going to create internal economic instability rather for all of the nations in that region, and then that could reverberate throughout the entire world. And so when you have economic instability, that if it persists for too long, could create political instability. So I think right now, I think it's just a question of if Putin is going to push the envelope even further, or whether this is about what he thinks that he can get away with. I agree, he doesn't really have a strong hand in terms of the long-term economic winds are not blowing in Russia's favor. So to withstand economic isolation that could ensue could damage him internally down the line. So I think he's calculating to what extent do I want to want to push this, even if he does have a greater vision of Russia expanding, there's long-term economic consequences to that. So I think all of the parties involved are going to suffer in the short term while we see how the chips fall in this latest situation. And if the tensions subside a little bit and, cooler heads prevail and economic imperative says, hey, we all need to take a step back. I mean, I think that could happen. But if there's, increasing tensions, if both sides start ratcheting up and escalating, sometimes that becomes a cycle where you can't take a step back. So, I think we're sort of at a standstill, and at least for the short term, yeah, it's definitely going to have a destabilizing effect. The question is how long term is that destabilization going to be?
Dr. Jawad Al-Ani, do you still this is going to be standstill and just wait and see what happens, or there are some scenarios in place from NATO, from United States, and also from Russia?
Well, I think, they want to send a very strong message to President Putin that, whatever extra incremental steps you might think of taking in the future, these are going to be fraught with bigger risks and so on. So the question is not going to focus only on what has happened, but also to engage in what we might call in preventive approach that would make President Putin think twice or thrice before he can commit to any adventure in the future. Now, where else would he go if he wanted really to expand? Yesterday, he was too careful to leave the notion that he was going to annex those areas to Russia. So in a way, he wants to keep them as independent enclaves inside Ukraine, where he can monitor things and feels that his security is he's taking a hedging approach towards protecting the security of Russia as far as he's concerned. And he wants also to stop what he calls the hegemony of the Western powers to try to encroach gradually upon the territories which are Russia and the near areas. For instance, recently there were problems within Byelorussian, and in Minsk, the president there had problems coping up and even maintaining himself, and he had to use a strong military and police power. And he was strongly supported by President Putin. So in a way, there are certain soft spots around Russia which can be problematic for President Putin himself. So the second thing that really attracted my attention was the Chinese position, because in a way the Chinese were making sort of a soft supporting statements to Russia, but without actually engaging themselves too much into this fight, as if they are saying, okay, let's see what happens. And they probably were waiting for President Putin to seek their help or so on, so they can strengthen their negotiation position with him. But somehow I believe that the economic dimension is going to stay with us for some time. And now, what will it do, economically speaking? It will, it will probably increase prices of oil. Prices of oil today took a very funny trend. While they reached almost $100 per barrel according to the Brent mix, but then it dropped at the end of the day by $3.50. So the ultimate price was only 96 point something. The WTI, or Western Texas, increased a little bit, but it went down to 91 something and half dollars. So in a way, yeah, it will have some impact, but it's not having that big of an impact, because they believe that the reaction of the Western countries right now and the NATO and others is not going to be going to war or sending to boots on the ground, but it will be economic. So let's see what happens, and it depends on the measures that they will take. But it is going to be a long dragged battle. And the question that I would like, for the interest of our viewers to raise is the following: what will happen in Russia after Putin? I mean, is Putin sustainable? Is his trend in Russia sustainable? Can actually Russia afford that in the long run? And if they are made to pay very high cost, then probably, we are talking about Russia that also may witness restructuring changes, as like what happened after the glasnost and the perestroika in 1990s.
So let's see what Dr. Diar Saleh said about this. Do you think this will play in the interest of Russia, or actually will probably hurt Putin in this case?
I think there is something important to say before answering this question. The first one concerning the highly spread of emotions of fears and hatred among the Europeans after the Russian step. This might return our societies in general, not just in Europe, to the face of the Cold War. The second important thing to be said is the role played by the Western powers towards Ukraine. They didn't do any important thing to prevent Russia from invasion Ukraine. This is also a real setback towards their allies. It is a strange message, not just to Ukraine, but also to the other people living in the western part of Europe, especially to Poland. I know that Poland is very optimistic towards the role that might be played by Russia on the long term. So in this case, I think that all these countries fear that one day the Russian troops will be on their territories. To answer the question of Dr. Anani, I think that Putin is, as I said at the beginning of my speech, believing in the geopolitical thoughts of Alexander Dugin. He is applying his thoughts not just towards China, Iran, the Middle East, but also towards how to rebirth the great power of Russia to balance the political world order. For this, I think it is an advantage for Putin as a leader. But on the long term, it will depend on the consequences, whether that Russia will be able to overcome the consequences or not. For another side, if we take the Russian support to the breakaway regions in Ukraine, there's also a very dangerous message to the others that Russia at any time might do the same mistake, and this will lead to break the geographical unity, not just for Ukraine, but also for the other countries. Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Brian Frederick, so you think are we heading to a mess of Cold War, or is this really a new way of, as Dr. Diar Saleh mentioned, is to show actually Russia is coming back as the second or third strongest economy in the world, and also military and nuclear power and all of that. Well, where do you see that happening? The last word, please.
Yeah, so I think this goes back to when the original Cold War came to an end. The diplomat George Kennan indicated it would be a mistake for the NATO to expand further and further towards the Russian border. That eventually, Russia, there would be an internal nationalist reaction to that, whether it's Putin in power or some other Russian leader. So this isn't just Putin. This is fueled by internal Russian dynamics and a perceived threat from NATO and the West. And so I think that we can't go back and reverse that. It's already happened. I don't think that it's going to be a Cold War in the sense that it was before, because Russia does not have the same economic power that it did, and it's slowly in a demographic decline. So at this particular point, yes, there might be a renewed hostility and there a ramping up of tensions, but it won't be at the same level because Russia's not on the same footing. The United States is still the world's leading power, and so I think that is similar to what it used to be. But I don't think we're going to go back to there. And I think all parties involved realize the downsides of a real hot war, and so while there probably will be continued escalation, I think it will be minor around the edges, and we're not going to go back to the same level of intensity that we saw at various points.
With that note, thank you, Dr. Brian Frederick, professor and head of the Political Science Department, Bridgewater State University. Thank you, Dr. Diyar Saleh, is a professor of Political Science Department, Muslim Sharia University, Baghdad, Iraq. And thank you, Dr. Jawad Lanani, the head of the Board of Trustees of Al-Qaeda University, Amman, Jordan. Thank you so much. I will rely on you in the second session. And thank you for answering our really request. Was, as I said, very quick. Thank you so much, and look forward to your inputs next time. Thank you. And thank you for watching InFocus. See you next week.